Good evening
to all the people of Myanmar participating in this revolution. We hope that you are all healthy and safe and that we are known and for the weekly talk show that we organize every Sunday. This is called a Way of Thought program. We'd like to welcome you back from today's program. Today, we'll be discussing about the building a new nation and building a new nation which is based on the human rights. From the November 25th to 10th of December is the duration is called the cap period of 16 days of activism, and that many women rights activists and different governments and different organizations has participated as well. That yesterday was the last day of the 16 days of activism, and along with that, on the that on the that at the 10th of December actually is the end of the Disney Division. It is also the International Human Rights Days. On the International Human Rights Day, we celebrated the different activities and that for the People's School team, we also have invited different representatives from different groups and this topic of human rights. People are born with human rights, and they are entitled to live and die with dignity, and that with the full human rights as well. But around the world, there are many political systems, individuals, and the organizations which are prohibiting people from getting the rights that they are entitled to. These are in a way enemies of the revolution, because aggression or the bullying and that always different forms of that the problem, not acknowledging that not acknowledging the rights of the people and the challenges we face. It is important to remind ourselves that this is what this revolution has been. So during this period, it is important that we have the federal standards and that the democratic practices that they all need to be part of our foundation, and that's why we go on our journey for the federal democracy as our goal. It is also important to follow human right principle as a basis, because this represents the way forward for us. That from the people's goal that we have changed our name from that of the the People's Soldier Program to People's School. Now we are also talking about the different values that we have for the that it is also important to promote this rights. It is also important to do. We have also has said that it's important to establish these principles and these goals on the way on the journey to the federal democracy. People's Code team will engage with the different like-minded individuals or organization in our struggle for federal democracy based on the human rights. This topic of building a new nation based on human rights. We have invited different speakers. That this is an organization jointly organized by the human rights organization, and that and as was called team that we are now that who will now be talking with the representatives from the human rights defenders who have been working systematically, and that we are also we have the human rights defenders. We also have one people soldier who have joined the people's side in the struggle for democracy. We also have invited a member of the CRPH as well. So we'll be introducing you to the speakers one by one. Our first speaker is Dr. Ohmar from Progressive Voice, and then we have Uma Winu from Women's Peace Network. We have Nanda from Korean Human Rights Organization. We have Sithu, a parliamentarian and a member of the CRPH, and we are Khun Baham, Deputy Minister of the Ministry of Human Rights, and Naung, a CDM soldier and a member of the People's School team as well. So that in today's talk, before we start, we would like to inform you that this live show is we are live streaming it over about 20 pages right now, and that we also out of these 20 Facebook page where we are live streaming, we also have about 20 media pages as well. We'd like to ask our spectators from different stream pages. You can join us directly in them using the Zoom link to join us and talk with us, or you can also send us question and messenger through these live pages as well. So I'll be the moderator for today's talk show. My name is Shunlei. So that first, for the first round, we'll talk about the situation about human rights in Myanmar, and then the observations and the comments, your perspective on the human rights. It will be reflected by the different speakers. I would like to first invite Naung from Women Peace Network. You have 5 to 7 minutes. You have then please use the time to share about your perspectives on the human rights context in Myanmar. Good evening to all of you. I hope that you are all staying safe and healthy, and that I'm honored for this opportunity to be able to participate in today's talk show. And I would like to say thank you to the organizers of the People's School, as well as for the Myanmar Human Rights, Myanmar Human Rights that I have forgotten the organization name. So I would just say thank you to the organizers for inviting me to be part of this important talk as well, and that the fact that I'm here with the respected leaders to be part of this part of the discussion is a pleasure and an honor. So so let's talk about rights. And before we go into the human rights, the first point I would like to make is that in today's time and today's current time, people across Myanmar, they are they have been facing issues with democracy and human rights. They have a strong commitment to democracy and human rights, and then that is that I would like to say that I respect each and every one of you. That's the first one I would like to make, because that 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 for it is when you are a human being, it is important to be that there are the rights that you are entitled to. There is human dignity that you can live to, and this human dignity and the human rights are inherent, that are innate, that no one can take them away from you. That is something you are born with. That is that it is important, people to people have the right to freedom of speech, freedom of movement, freedom of beliefs, and freedom of ideology. These are all that we are part of the human rights that we are born with. People have the right to enjoy and to be able to be able to enjoy the rights they are entitled in Myanmar, due to due to the military supremacy, interference in the politics and their intervention, because of military trying to dominate the politics, interfere, people of Myanmar have has suffered and that they were not able to enjoy that as that the military had that it is military have always made efforts to keep the people blind, them to keep the people not know anything about human rights or that as well, and that they they use propaganda so much, and that and portray human rights like a danger, it's like a risk against the people. So they created that situation. So it's kind of it is how people lack knowledge about it as well. But at the same time, they will use propaganda to create to distort the image of human rights into something dangerous and risky. At the same time, they are also violating it as well. That is that so at the same time they are also they are also violating, and that as well, that after that they have also at the same time they are violating the whole different forms of human right as well now, and that after this they have killed about 2,500 people. That that So that that means that they did over 2,100 people, that including young generation. They are the future. They have so much potential. They have arrested and detained over 60,000 people. They have also arbitrarily arrested and detained 13,000 using different means. Even the moment I'm speaking now, it is human rights violations are happening at the very moment I'm speaking. The violence and the atrocities of the military are, in a way, different from what we have thought. In the past, what we have understood, what we have assumed about the atrocities of the military is, in a way that also and we thought we understood, but really, no, we didn't really understand what's happening, how the military has been violating. We talk about often that military is violating the human rights, but people don't believe it because we don't see it with our own eyes. We really we don't really see it, but it has been happening. Persistent, systematic human rights violations the military has been perpetrating, especially in ethnic areas, that the way the military, that the rank and file has been committing rape against ethnic women. There will have be arbitrary arrests, forced disappearances, and that extrajudicial killings. They are pushing people for having the right to live, the right to survive, the right to economy, the right to education. They make the people's life harder in these ethnic areas. And then there are also issues of forced labor as well, and that it is also they also that that especially for those who live in the urban areas, like that in the central regions, we didn't know about that. We haven't seen that in our own eyes, but right now, currently, people across Myanmar, across the highlands and the plains, we know about their military's human rights violations. That we know that we are seeing that they are what they have been behaving is much beyond that human rights violation. They are committing war crimes. They are committing crimes against the citizens of Myanmar, against civilians population. So when they do that, it is they use different means to commit such crimes, and that after the coup, particularly after the coup, after they have tried to conduct the coup in after 2021 February, one thing that is so obvious is that the people of Myanmar are the way they have been. They don't consider people of Myanmar as human beings. Like they don't even consider people like humans. That the lives of the people, civilian, is not even that's not even well merit alive. It's like they would kill people, they would arrest people arbitrarily, they would conduct race, they would loot, they would take away the people's as livelihood. They act as if they are the worst form of the gang violence, and that gangs, that's how they've been acting, and that people is protesting against the military and people who are participating in this revolution, that the actions of the people against the dictatorship, all these actions stem from simply from the fact that people are exercising their human rights. People have the right of freedom of speech. People have the right to speak up against the dictators. People have the right to a government. People have the right to demonstrate. These are all the basic human rights, the intrinsic human rights that people are exercising right now. And they want that if the people are exercising these rights, either to the government or a dictator, that it is also that it is also important that people have each and every one of them has a right to demonstrate against the dictators, not even the dictator, even the government, they don't like the government, they're not happy with the government, they have the right to strike and demonstrate and speak up. These are the basic political rights or basic human rights, and that these kind of exercise on those who they are killing people, who are demonstrating, they are killing people, they are using different ways to do that. As even when once you're inside the prison, then it's no longer finished. You are still being attacked. You are still being being victimized. You are being tortured. You don't even get the rights of a prisoner. You are not even the basic human rights will be taken away, and the rights of the prisoner will not be respected, and people could be killed at any time on the whim. And now we are also seeing the execution as well as capital punishment as well. The death sentences, capital punishment, these are all various forms of war crimes the military is committing. They are committing such crimes systematically and a very broad scale. It's happening across Myanmar in different parts of Myanmar. That in some areas, in conflict areas, that they are also not following the rules and regulations, that they are that is by looking at we can see that the situation that is happening right now is they are committing war crime, and that they are also committing crime against humanity. So this is what we are seeing right now. Is some of the area. This is really that is even like ethnic cleansing. We can even call it because they're targeted at they can even call it a genocide or the genocide because they're targeting a particular ethnic groups. And these crimes that they are committing is, as I've discussed before, this happening across Myanmar in a broad spectrum of areas that it is happening right now. The situation was and escalated, but it was happening already before in the ethnic areas before the coup. The crimes against the Rohingya community has been recognized as ethnic cleansing, as a genocide. It has been obvious. It has been evidence has been proved. So I think it is important. That's why that Myanmar has been prosecuted at in the international mechanism at the ICJ, International Criminal Court. That although ICC also is investigating and looking into this crime as well to be able so that we can hold that perpetrators accountable. Last point I would like to make is that in Myanmar, we look at human rights in Myanmar, the military has been violating human rights violation has become different ways in different manner, different approaches. They are also committing war crimes. It is important to hold them accountable one day for the crimes that they have committed and to stop the crimes from happening once again in the future. It's important to take the action against them. It's important to hold them accountable. If we cannot do that, Myanmar will never be able to enjoy the human rights and will forever be stricken with the curse of human rights. That you also have to be aware about that. We have to be aware that people have been blinded or that brainwashed against the human rights under the military propaganda. So that people do not even understand the values of human rights or the importance of human rights or the principles of human rights. That we have lost the culture of human rights as well, and that and also that so that and that it is also important that that it is important that we need to be so it is important to make sure that we have to be careful. We have to be aware about that as well. That is, that and that that it is that now we also need to be aware about. We also see in other human rights violations committed by the revolutionary forces or those who are in the productive forces. Why we are demanding human rights? Why we are trying to build a country of a democracy and human rights? It is important that we have to be aware about as well. That is that it is because if we have to be aware of if many people don't understand about human rights and that people are saying that we have been victims of human rights and then they don't realize themselves when they are committing themselves the human rights violations that we cannot deter. It is also important to help them guide them people get back on the right track as well. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you very much, Wiwimo. What we have learned is the experience of the Rohingya woman and as well as the human rights activist Wiwimo. She had a particular organization in this struggle. Well, in this particular duration, we are facing the enormous violations of the human rights. I would like to encourage public to keep on listening to us in order to really understand the ground situation. I would like to invite Son Nanda. So he is from Khin Human Rights Organization, and let's hear from him regarding the experience and then the ground situation. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for having me invited to be in here. I will discuss on the perspective of the ethnic individuals. We have many ethnic individuals living in Myanmar who experience the continuous violations of human rights in all consecutive and successive military dictatorship regimes. And at this moment, the military dictatorship it's on its extreme form of violation. After 2021, the forces of military violate the human rights gravely and massively, and they conducted all sort of atrocity, extrajudiciary killing, forced internally displaced conduct. They conducted destruction on the public's property and asset. And in Khin state, for example, there are over 300,000 Khin individual left home to hide from the military atrocity, among which the majority of them are women and children. And at the same time, the military troops committed the airstrike on the public properties, schools, and religious buildings. But then again, where is the accountability for such kind of atrocities? And where is the justice for all these grievances? Again, the perpetrator and the blame is to be made on the military coup leader, the military dictatorship. We are human beings. We must have the rights that we are born with. We must have the integrity that we inherently possess. And it's very much important to have the military dictatorship get rid of. So there must be no room for impunity. There must be all the individuals of the military hunters to take responsibilities and accountability. And for that, we need to have the Human Rights Commission independent and capable of doing its mandate. So we really need to have this kind of Human Rights Commission in the future Myanmar so that people will have justice and democracy and justice will be restored by that way. Thank you very much. So, Nanda and Siama Wewenu, and you mentioned the perpetrators are there. The military dictatorship is the perpetrator. And on top of that, the human rights violation can happen with the various profile of perpetrators, including the military dictatorship. So there must be a way to fix this situation with the help and with the tool and with the mechanism of the Human Rights Commission. So that is what we learn from all of you. And we have invited all of the panelists. The one of them is Go Nongyu from the People's Go. So now the floor is yours for the contribution. Minglawa to all of you. I wish you well. Minglawa to all of you. I was ex-military personnel. I would like to talk about the human right perspective based on the military man. And the previous speakers mentioned about the worst situation of the human right violation in the environment of the military dictatorship, and now we are living under the worst time of the violation basically, and people know it very well, the situation that they live. And in terms of the violation and in terms of this mistreatment and discriminatory treatment regarding the human rights, the military dictatorship committed these kind of conduct not only on the public but also on the military personnel themselves. So this is something that I would like to draw all of your attention, that the rights are violated against the the military people as well. And again, human rights, it's to be there not only on the civilian but also on the military personnel. The military personnel did not enjoy any of such rights over decades. When it comes to the discrimination, when it comes to the violation, when it comes to the mistreatment, I would say that it's can be seen as the institutional value of the military. The women military personnel has all sort of discrimination that they suffer from. And military is not there for the non-Buddhist individual. And for the promotion within the military, there are limitations for the non-Buddhist people, non-Buddhist military personnel. There are also Christian military personnel, the soldiers, and they are not given the 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 the, the rights. The freedoms of religion was not given to them as well. And we have seen that kind of violation. And in military, there are young, educated soldiers. They have very innovative idea, but then again, due to the promotion, due to the situation, and due to the all sort of violation, these group of young, educated, innovative soldiers were not giving space for them to grow themselves as of their career. And another thing that I would like to talk about is the vaccination. The vaccination is not possible for the military men. And on top of that, we, well, as the military personnel, they had to undertake all sort of other responsibility which has nothing to do with their job. And in the military coup, there are soldiers who oppose this sort of act, and they express their feelings that they expressed their opinion that they do not support the military coup. And for them, they encounter all the backfire action against them. They were sent to the court martial and they were penalized for expressing their opinions. So, in my observation, the life of the military man is the life that has been exploited by the leaders of the military hunters, and the families of the soldiers are very much terrible. The families of the soldier were treated as the slave of the military hunters. They did not get they did not get paid in order to serve the superior. And after the after the military coup, the violation seems quite much more intense. The soldiers were sent to the front line, leaving their families behind, and the families who left behind were used by the military for the security purpose for the military camp. And in some cases, some of the children of the soldiers who are in front line were installed with weapon and used them as the security guards of the military camp behind. So basically, I am trying to say that the human right violation happened by the military not only in the ethnic area but also in the military camp. And I also would like to say something. when it comes to the revolution, everyone is trying to build a new federal country. In this country, the value of the human rights are to be there for everyone, including the soldiers and the families of the soldiers. So, for the human rights, for the democracy, and for the federal, the revolution it's ongoing, so that the lost future, the lost integrity, the lost grievances were to be restored in that revolution. So it is a must for all of us to join our hand in the revolution in order to have this revolution a win. Thank you.
စစ်တပ်အတွင်း
Thank
ထဲမှာ
you very much. Violation is in
ကိုယ့်
every
တပ်
form.
ထဲကဒီ
The violation within the military camp
ထိန်းထားတယ်ဆိုတဲ့ကာလ
and in the military institution was used as the common norm for all the military personnel to get used to it. And this is how they control the soldiers.
ရှိနေနိုင်ပါတ
And
ယ်
the
ဆိုတော့ဒီလိုလူ
violation
့ခွင့်
within the military is something that the public would not get access to understand. But then again, for our future, if our future is to be fixed in a way that we want, the benefit will be enjoyed
နဲ့
by everyone. So
နောက်ဆုံးတစ်
that's
ယောက်
why the revolution forces welcome the defectors. Now, I would like to mention that we would like to invite Siama Dokitma for progressive voice while we are talking and discussing about the human rights situation. Thank you. The floor is yours, ma'am. Being love to all of you, together with the public people's goal,
ဌာနတစ်ခုပေါ်
the
ပေါက်လာဖို့အတွက်ကိုစ조사နေတဲ့ကျမတို့အရက်ဖက်အဖွဲ့အစည်းများရဲ့အလုပ်အဖွဲ့ရှိပါတယ်အားလုံးကကျမတို့
civil society organizations are joining hand in hand to establish a community that is of
စင်လေး
the
ကကျမတို့ဆွေးနွေး
standard
နေတဲ့ခေါင်း
one
စဉ်လေးက
and the valid one and that of the one that has integrity. 20 organizations, the CSOs, are working together in this platform. This topic is rather important for all of us to discuss. We have the revolution
ဘယ်လိုနိုင်
for the
လဲဆိုတော့
year.
အားလုံးကတည်တည်ချာချာရှင်းရှင်းလင်းလင်းနဲ့
We want to have a future country, and the future of this country that we want is the federal democracy, and we have a explicit and clear roadmap. In this country,
ရဲ့မြန်မာနိုင်ငံထဲမှာ
there
ပြည်တွင်းနဲ့
are minorities, there are religious groups, there are linguistic groups, and every group will be equal, and the human rights are to be protected and enhanced. So these are the foundation of the future federal democratic country
တစ်ခု
that
ထူ
we
ထောင်
all
မယ်ဆိုလို့ရှိရင်
want.
အဲ့ဒီနိုင်ငံကအဲ့ဒီ
So
federal
in order to establish the new country, and one question is why the future country is to be built based on the human rights
ဖက်စစ်
value.
အုပ်စုကနေပြီးတော့
Because the previous speaker
ပြောပြီးသားဖြစ်
mentioned
တယ်ပေါ့
that
နော်ဒါပေမဲ့ဒီ
this
မှာကျမတို့စိတ်
country
ပါလဲဆိုတော့
has no human rights. Human rights is silenced. So that's why the new country has to be based on what was not there before. This future must not return to its
အာ
past.
ကျမတို့အတွက်
The
တိုင်းပြည်
curtain must be closed
အဓိကအကြဆုံးက
in the new future.
လူ့အခွင့်အရေး
The new future for us
နိုင်ငံအသစ်တစ်ခု
is to have the human rights value
လူ့အခွင့်အရေး
in line with everything what is going to happen.
ပြောရမယ်ဆိုတော့
And
ဆိုတော့ကျမတို့ဒီ
we
စေအု
have
ပ်စုရဲ့
this
ခေါင်းဆောင်တွေပေါ့နော်
rule by law military dictatorships, and at the same time we have its troop that serve as a dark gang, stealing, robbing, raping
အဲ့တော့အဲ့လို
everyone.
လုပ်နိုင်ဖို့ဆိုတာလေ
So, in this situation, we had to come up with the way to restore justice. We need to have a community that has a human rights institution that
လူအတိုင်းဝိုင်းတစ်ခုမှာ
has nothing to do with the government. And there are many school of thoughts. There is a need to have the rule of law. There is the need to have democracy in order to have rule of law. But then again, whenever we have a democracy, there is no rule of law.
အာဏာရှင်မဟုတ်တော့လည်းပဲ
For
အရက်သား
example, in the authoritarian, well, if it is not the authoritarian regime, even in the civilian government, the civilian government can impose the oppression on its own people. Yes, there are
ခက်ခဲတာမျိုး
elections.
လည်းရှိပါတယ်
Yes, there are all sort of mechanisms. But then again, the human rights violation can still be happened. So now going back to the continuous violation practices, talking about the continuous impunity,
ပြောင်းလဲ
about
နိုင်ရ
the
မယ်အာ
by law enjoyed, the military dictatorship, all of these needs to be changed, and we have to take them accountable and responsible. We have to take them accountability and responsibility for that. We need to have the independent human rights commission or independent human rights institution. Did we have that before? Well, during the U Thein Sein government time, by 2012, by 2010, 11, the government
ပြောမယ်ဆိုရင်
established the Human Rights Commission. But then again, according to our experience and the Human Rights Commission that we had back then was just there in order to cover up the messes and the the interest of the military at that time. They did nothing more than that. But then again, we also have this current Human Rights Commission, the current one, but the current Human Rights Commission is just
မှာပဲပြောပြောကျမတို့ကဒီလိုရန်ရမျိုးကြော်
coup
လိုက်
leader, the coup military dictatorship. So we really have to fix this kind of mechanism. We established in 2019. In 2019, we mentioned that the Human Rights Commission did not serve the public. So we try to change the law at the parliament back then. By February 2021, we had this military coup, and they are trying to stage the coup, and they are still staging the coup with no success because the public are still revolting them. At this moment, we have this political leader, the NUG, the CRPH, and we have this
ဝါဒဦးဆောင်အဖွဲ့ဖြစ်တဲ့ NUCC
the NUCC, and we have all the revolution leader in political aspect. For this, we propose one thing to them. What we propose to them is that
ကျမတို့က
while we are trying to establish the future, what we want them to do is to come up with a new law. We have this National Human Rights Commission, which is under the Military
မလို့
Council
ကျွန်တော်တို့
serve the military dictatorship. We do not want them. They do not represent the public. So in the revolution time, we need to have a law. And for our working group on independent human
တ
rights
ခြားနိုင်ငံ
institution,
ကဒီ
we work together with international experts. We work together with other stakeholders in order to come up with a law. So this draft is proposed to NUCC, NUG. We really want to have this
မြင်နေရမှာပါလဲ
draft
ဆိုလို့ရှိရင်
law
ဒီလို
enacted. And another thing that I would like to talk about is that the Human Rights Commission is to be free from government, and it's to serve the
ပုံ
public,
မှာ
and it needs to be impartial.
ကျမ
We
တို့ဒါ
really
ကိုအုပ်
need
မြ
to
စ်ချ
have
လိုက်နိုင်
that
မယ်ဆို
kind
ရင်
of mechanism, and we need to have this kind of organizations or institutions foundation started in this revolution, so that by the time when we have the new law, then the implementation
လို့ရှိရင်
would
ကျမတို့
be
ဒီတော်လှန်ရေးကာလမှာ
possible. So the Union Commission is something that I mean, we are talking about. Only then the human right values will be founded. So this kind of structure would be valuable for this revolution time and for the future.
လောလောဆယ်ကျမတို့ဘ
We
က်ကတင်ပြထား
propose
တဲ့ဥစ္စာ
that
ကို
we really want to have it happen soon. I just would like to share all my comrades and all my colleagues that we are proposing this. Again, the National Human
စစ်အုပ်စု
Rights
ကိုဗာလေတရား
Commission
ဝင်မှုရအောင်သူတို့ကတရားဝင်မှုကိုသူတို့
under the military dictatorship tried to have the the state administration council legitimized in international community. They are trying that on behalf of them.
ဒါပေ
Must
မဲ့ဘယ်လိုပဲပြောပြောကျ
stop
မတို့
them
နိုင်ငံက
doing this kind of international advocacy and lobby to legitimize the state administration council. As you all know that military at this revolution period
သိခါပါ
is not a military. I mean, for me, I would not
အဲ
use this
တရားဥပ
name
ဒေ
to
အထက်မှာ
call
နေ
them.
ပြီးတော့မှ
You knew it very well. They position themselves above the law all the time, and they committed all sort of inhumane crime. We have to stop them, and we have
အခြေ
to
ခံပြီးတော့ကျွန်
build
တော်
a
အုံမြင့်
new
ချနိုင်ရမယ်
future. That new future is to be built based on the human rights value. And in order to do so, we need to have an institution, the commission, that it's independent from the government and that serve the
တွေ့ဖက်သွားနိုင်တဲ့
but
ဟာ
then
တွေလည်းရှိတယ်
again,
လူ့အခွင့်အ
when
ရေး
such kind of commission, it's very much depend on the government of a particular time. It will serve only to a particular government then. So in the comparative analysis, we can see that some of the civilian governments,
သက်ဆိုင်ရာ
human
NUG က
commission,
NUG နဲ့ CRPH က
still oppress and still cannot prevent the violations of the human rights. So that is what we have to take note of it. And again, then again, we are proposing the future plan with to the NUG and UCC
တင်ပါတယ်ရှင်
that in the
ဟုတ်ကဲ့
revolution
ကျေးဇူး
it
တင်ပါ
will
တ
be
ယ်
useful and it'll be definitely productive for the future to have them as well. Thank you very much. And thank you for your sharing regarding the recommendation that you made towards NUG and NUCC.
ရဲ့ဒီလူ့
And
ခွင့်
you
အခြေပြ
also mentioned about the working group on independent national human rights institution. And we observed all the key points that you mentioned regarding your recommendation, your your observations on the current situations as well.
အဲ
And
အဖွဲ့အစည်း
now we
NUG က
have the guests from CRPH and NUG. We have them as guests, and I would like to get the response from them. What would be
ထားဖို့ဘာတွေဆောင်ရွက်နေသ
your
လဲဆိုတော့အတိတ်လေး
reaction in terms of setting up the foundations of the human rights in the future? So what has been done and what are you doing in terms of the CRPH and NUG? Go Sithu, please go ahead. Thank you very much. for me to be part of
အများ
this.
ကျွန်တော်မိတ်ဆွေတွေနဲ့ပြောတိုင်းဒီလူခွင့်ရေးနဲ့ပတ်သက်တဲ့စကားကိုပြောတိုင်းကျွန်တော်ပြောလို့ရှိတဲ့စကားတစ်ခုရှိပါတ
Thank
ယ်
you for this opportunity. Whenever we talk about democracy and human rights, I always say that if there is democracy and human rights, it is important to have democracy, and that one good example is that there is democracy without human rights. I think we learned in high school, back in the Socrates time, where at that time there was democracy. During the Socrates in the ancient Greek or Rome, there was democracy that people were having able to raise their there's democracy, but what if we don't have other basic human rights, like right of freedom of speech or right to freedom of that that's why Socrates has to swallow himself, kill himself because his opinion is different. But I'm saying there was democracy and human rights. Socrates had to commit suicide because of holding different opinion. That's very clear examples. Democracy and human rights, the two sides of a coin. I would say that I think it is important that we are only say, when you use the word human rights, it is a human rights, not just a terminology that we use it to make a good talk or give a good interview. And that, it is not like that. It is important to put them as a, it is also important to be able to understand it. It is important to recognize that we that Commission of Human Rights, KHR, it is important to set rules and to comply with them. It is important to have as value, as important value, which serve as a basis for the building of the future nation. We believe these are important foundations. Human rights is very close to that of, and that in the 2020 first 2021 Spring Revolution, what happened after that because of the violence and atrocities of thing we have seen people being shot and people being killed, and we have also seen that people that we know that what has been happening to other as used to think that there was true. Was it really happened? People, sometimes people will say that, well, they are the illegal migrants. They try to, steal inside people often will say that, and also also in a different area, different what's happening, like new villages burn down, and then all that is happening too. That it is important that the driving is way important that it is important for us to understand this is a driving force. Human rights should be driving force. Despite of whatever context we are in, human rights should be drive. Human rights should be a principle, should be a value. We need to invest in our future generations for all of us. It's important to put it as a value to be able to dwell on and take you as that like the today's talk title go, like building a new nation based on human rights. And that I think CRPH also CRPH is a member of NPT. We also have the strike committee. We also have the federal that consultation council. We all have agreed on the federal democracy by the people. It is important to have a constitutional framework like the federal democracy in drafting and developing the charter and all of notice that the values for building the federal nation, the part one of the charter that we have that we have included specifically fundamental human rights as well as other minority. All these are also being included as well. And that in that okay.
mutual respect and mutual recognition ပေါ့နော်ဒါမျိုးတွေကိုဒီဖော်ပြတာကျွန်တော်တို့သတိပြုမိတယ် ပြီးတော့တဟဇာတာဖြစ်ခြင်းနဲ့မတူကွဲပြားမှုတွေကိုလက်ခံတဲ့ညီညွတ်ခြင်းနဲ့တွားမယ်ဆို
Cohesion,
ပြောရသ
diversity,
လို
acceptance are all part of the Federal Charter. Gender equality can be observed there. Well, no discrimination, for example,
ဒါမျိုးတွေလင်စိတ်ခံ
means
ယူမှုတို့ကြားမှမ
celebrating the diversities in the sense of linguistic groups, religious group, gender group. So again, when it comes to the Federal Charter, this are part of the core value of the future Myanmar. So when it comes to the new federal constitution in the country, these will serve as the core value of our country. That is what we all are trying. This is what we like to say. And then again, as the previous speakers mentioned, we really need to have the independent Human Rights Commission. This is a commitment that we all have. I think this is what I understand. And this is the topic and this is the agenda that it's a must and it is a priority. This is what I understand as the very much pressing things to work on in the future. Thank you very much. And now it's been quite encouraging to observe all of your discussion points because I feel that and we all are on the same direction in our future as well. The human rights groups are calling for this direction. The implementers, such as CRPH, has commitment to work on this direction. So thank you very much for sharing all of your thoughts. Now we have guests from NUG, the Deputy Minister of the Human Rights Ministry. It's invited. Please take the floor for your discussion point. Building the new country based on the human rights is the topic of the discussion that we are having. Thank you very much for having me invited. And I also would like to thanks to the organizer of this talk. And I also would like to greet and thanks to all of our member of publics and comrades joining with us together. As the previous speakers mentioned, the need to have the Human Rights Commission. Well, for this particular perspective, I just would like to mention our ministry aspect. We serve as the new government agency in this new government as part of the administrative structure. Before that, in Myanmar, there was never the human rights ministry, but of course, there were the Myanmar National Human Rights Commissions, which was supposed to be free and independent, but it was not the case. So, as the very need for this country to have that kind of free and independent institution, we started as the government agency to begin with in this new government as the Human Rights Ministry. As part of the ministry, we have a strategic plan to implement in which we recognize the human rights violation continuously happen in Myanmar's land. And we looked into the intervention, response, and ways to address the worst situation in Myanmar. We do documentation, we do research, we handle the reports, we establish the reporting mechanisms as well, and we will make sure that we will handle with system even in the revolution period. So these are all part of our strategic plans as well. Again, as the previous leaders mentioned that the impunity, it's something that we work so hard to uproot this kind of culture in Myanmar as well. And another thing that I would like to say is that as part of the national unity government, We have all the international standards that we integrated into our government work. And another thing that I would like to talk about is the public awareness and public education. So public would understand the values of the human rights and actual practice of the human rights are there for as part of our awareness message, education messages, so that prevention and protections of the human rights will be there among the public members as well. As part of our ministry, we do documentation, we do research, and we have a sub unit for this work. We have a research unit. Our research unit under the Human Rights Ministry conducts the forms, intensities, and natures of a human rights and human rights violation. And we found out that we are experiencing not just the human right violation, we are experiencing the gross human right violation, such as the um, genocide and crime against humanity. We also have another unit, the communication unit. The communication unit inform the public what's going on, and the public awareness message and the public education messages. And for education unit, the education unit of our ministry are very busy informing people of all the messages and information that they need to know. And we also have another unit in our ministry that works the support. The support unit, the response unit is there. And based on the limited resources that we have, they are responding the need of the public as well. Again, we are working as much as we can in order to improve the future in terms of improve the human rights situations in the country as well. And we also do the international advocacy and lobby. We work on them, we collaborate on them, and we meet regularly with the international organization, local organization, and we also work together with the INGO, the non-governmental international organizations, and with them we collaborate and cooperate with them in various aspects. We are there for cooperations and collaboration as much as we can. Another thing that I would like to talk about is that in this revolution time, we want to build a mechanism that would address the human right violation situation. For that, we believe that documentation is rather important. The thing is that in Myanmar, on the ground, on a daily basis, human rights violations are happening. The atrocity, extrajudicial killing, and arrest, and abuse, tortures are there on daily basis by by the military council. So it is very important for all of us to document what's going on the ground. So these documentation will be very much productive and useful for this period and as well as for the future for in order to restore justice through the transitional justice mechanism. This is what this ministry heavily contributed into, and we are documenting, we are collecting information, we are collecting evidences. Lastly, what I would like to talk about is in building the new future based on the human rights. For this, in order to share my opinion, documentation would be the basis in order to address the past in building the future. And we also need to have the changes of law, amendment of law, and amendment of policy. That is what we are preparing these days because we want the future government that is that respects the human rights, that serve the public. And this is the paramount for everyone to help everyone in the future to enjoy the human rights. For our ministry, we are studying the existing legal framework and came up with the improvement. That is what we are doing as well. And another thing that I would like to talk about is the accountability. And we are working together with the other stakeholder to establish the accountability mechanism. And we also have the Joint Coordination Committee for Transitional Justice. I would like to mention about that because this is a kind of a committee that would be very much instrumental in the future to have accountability and responsibility enhanced for all the perpetrator in the future so that justice will be restored for the Myanmar public. So with this perspective, we, as our ministry, participated in the Joint Coordination Committee of the Transitional Justice in developing policies, in developing all the tools. So, in this particular Joint Coordination Committee, there are members of NUCC, NUG, CRPH, CSOs, and other stakeholders. So, this is what we are doing in shaping our future through the transitional justice mechanism. So these are all our various activities of the ministry that undertake. Again, in this revolution, we are preparing as much as we can, and we are cooperating with the public as much as we can, and so that we will have a better future. So this is what I would like to inform to the public that we are handling all of them. And in the revolution time specifically mentioned, we are part of the administrative agency, but then again, when it comes to the N- National Human Rights Commission, a real one to be developed in the future is something that our ministry is seriously contributing for the emergence of this one. Thank you very much, and these are all the points that I would like to make at this moment.
And my apologies. Thank you for the deputy minister. And that I'm sorry that your name, sort of like make a mistake with your name as well. So thank you for the deputy minister and that you have shared with us what has happened with the work of the Union Minister for Ministry of Human Rights, the work you are doing on the ground. There are challenges on the ground, but you are working strongly, especially for to be able to record of each and every human rights violations is important. Only through the record of human rights violations that will be able to set standards in the protection of human rights. It is also important to do the promotion and that protection of human rights because we are seeing the highest foremost human rights violation. We are also seeing the utmost level of efforts in promoting human rights violations as well through the work of the ministry as well as on the commission. At the same time, we call it short human rights commission. On the commission that you also shared about that perspective about on the human rights commission from the ministry as well as from the CRPH is incredibly encouraging for all of us. So today we are now with the International Human Rights Day. It is important that we have like a genuine human rights commission, and that all different forces are working together for the establishment. So we hope that there will be new human rights commission that meets international standards in the next year. that we have shared this different perspective or different organizations as well. We have given over 1 hour to different individuals speaking from different organizations. It is hard to say that we represent the whole of the country, but different civil society organizations, there are many of them. We are various. We try to bring as many as possible to be able to hear different perspectives. That within the time that we have already shared quite a lot from the organization. We are also getting comments and questions as well from the audience as well. Now I would like to give time to our commentators or those who want to ask questions. So we have already requested you to raise your hand. Some of the questions we have received in the chat as well. I think we'd like to give that maybe speaker that 3 questions, because we also want to give time to other questions as well. So we'd like to request the participants to take 3 questions, look at the list of the questions and try to take 3 questions. First of all, I think we have a question for Sithu Maung. So that you have discussed that it is you have already accepted that it is necessary to establish a human rights commission. Now the civil society organization are demanding that a new human rights commission should be established. On that, as an parliamentarian and a member of CRPH, how do you see this? So this is the first question for you. So second question for you is, one, will the NUG state that Rohingya and other ethnic groups are citizens, are full citizens with full rights? So the question on that recognition of Rohingya and other ethnic groups to ensure that they have full rights that they are entitled to and as considered as a citizen. So this is a question on the NUG. So I would like to give this question to Deputy Minister of NUG. And the third question is that PDFs die for human rights, but are not recognized as human rights defenders by most international organizations. Although the PDFs are sacrificing for human rights, and yet they are not recognized as a human rights defenders by most international organizations. This means that they don't get compensation when they are injured. How can this situation be changed? So that is a questions, and that is I think maybe Dr. Ohmar will be better suited to respond to this question. So that so thank you. So we'll take these first 3 questions first, and then we also other speakers also feel free to join in and then answer the question. And so what I understood in the question is that it is important to form the question for commission. And I think the question is on the when we need to form the question. That it is right now that we are now is the I think we like to use the framework of the NUCC. Now we are in the interim period, so we have the revolutionary period, then we have an interim period where we are trying to eradicate the dictatorship. After that, we will go into a transition period. It is important to have a transitional constitution. That's the basis as stated and prescribed in the Federal Democracy Charter. During this interim period, we are drafting transitional constitution, and in the transitional constitution, there will be important provisions such as independent human rights commission, and that mechanisms for transitional justice. So such issues will be covered in the transitional constitution, especially when we draft a constitution like that of a transitional constitution, it will be concluded as content. If you're asking on the opinion of the CRPH, that all these policies are discussed, outlined, and agreed upon in the NUCC political platform, so that the topic of Human Rights Commission is that once this agenda is raised in the political dialogue, and that we can we agree to it, because we have the basic principle of based on justice and equality. So it is there are no vote against it. And second point, independent non-government controlled Human Rights Commission is very necessary, that not only for the transition but also for the interim period. And this is a basic that the basic statement that have our acceptance. I hope that that question has been answered. Thank you. Now I would like to invite Deputy Minister to respond to the other question. Could you remind me of the question? The question is that when will the NUG state that the Rohingya and other ethnic groups are full citizens and full rights? So my first response to this question is that our NUG is now working on our statement concerning the 1982 Citizenship Act. It is a Citizenship Act that we cannot accept, and that CRPH has already issued a statement that we are very much against the 1982 Citizenship Act. After that statement, that each and every one of the people of Myanmar from different parts of Myanmar, they are all entitled to rights. That for religion, to ensure that there is no discrimination based on location or that politics or their religion or faith or that or their ethnicity, and that it is important. It is important to have a citizenship law that is inclusive and non-discriminatory. We are now working, engaging, and discussing with international legal experts on that. In addition, ethnic organizations, as well as the other civil society organizations, we are running a lot of consultation. It is important to look at very discriminatory current Citizenship Act, and we cannot go on with that law. For that reason, we have repealed that law. We need a new law to substitute it. That for that, NUG already has passed that agreement. So we are now in the process of working towards a new citizenship law. That's what I would like to answer to your question. Thank you. We will also invite more questions. In the first round, there is also another question about the PDF. Although PDFs die for human rights, but they are not recognized as human rights offenders by most international organizations. This means that they don't get compensation when they're injured. How can the situation be changed? Siama Keuma, may I know your opinion on this? Before I answer this question, I think there are also the question about the CRPH, to the questions that CRPH and that the minister also respond to the question. I would like to add to the discussion. The Sithu has answered the question about the Human Rights Commission. If I have understood him correctly, the MP is saying that yes, the Human Rights Commission will be established, but it will be in the transitional constitution. So in that constitution, it will be the statement. Well, what our working group, civil society working group has suggested is not to wait until the transitional constitution comes out. It is important for us to start working on the Human Rights Commission right now, because even the commission, even if you can validate the law before the establishment of the commission, that during this revolutionary period, we civil society feel that based on the situation on the ground to protect and promote the rights of the civilian community on the ground, it is there are also there are a lot of work that we should be doing and focusing on, and then also MNHRC could all MNHRC is now representing the military junta in different global platforms. We need to remove that. We'll be able to cancel that because by saying we have our own right commissions, this way that will also let's stop current MNHRC under the military control rendering legitimacy to the military junta. So there are two levels to that. If we wait until if we wait until it is important to have this commission. It's twofold. One is to counter that, and the other is for the future as well. It's for long term. But this kind of commission, to be frank, we don't have to wait until the transition, and that according to the 19, for example, 1982 Citizenship Act is that if you want to recognize Rohingya, if you want to recognize the rights of the Rohingya, recognize their right as a citizen, it's not about it's not about giving them right to citizenship. It's about returning their right to citizenship. That's what we are asking about. It is that this 1982 Citizenship Act, especially for the, is very oppressive. It's very discriminatory against the Rohingya community compared to other ethnic minorities. Rohingya has been mainly targeted by this Citizenship Act. So that if we were to wait until we reach the new federal democracy, it is important. This is something we can amend before getting there. We can do that before the new nation has been established, so that we also is something we can also change, and it is the MNHRC that also is something that we can do it now. We don't have to wait until later. That the Myanmar Human Rights Commission law was established by the parliament back in the days, so we can also change it. We can also change the law. We can also establish a new genuine Human Rights Commission which is independent, and this commission will be able to keep record of the human rights violations people are facing on the ground. Now that the Ministry of Human Rights is there, the Human Rights Ministry of Human Rights can collect and record the human violation. As a government, they have a responsibility to do that. But what we are saying is we want a genuine human rights commission which is independent and not under any control of any government authorities. That this way, by having a fully independent human rights commission, that will be incredible for us, because international community, including the UN, is looking at NUG, NUCC, CRPH, and they're also looking at de jure. And that because we are now talking, when it comes to Myanmar, we talk about de jure and de facto government. So when you look at the legitimacy, when we decide on the legitimacy of that, one of the characteristics of government is that those who represent the government, who represent the country, or the leaders of a country in particular, they that that they were also, and it also important that they will see to what extent they are following the international rules and regulations, and that there are things you don't have to wait until the end. You can there are things you can do. It will be good for the revolution. It will encourage the people, so that international community will also see that those who are in the revolution, those who lead their people, who represent the government, and that they are also following the international conventions and rules, and that that also means that we can get more support, more more encouragement, as well as from the international community, because right now we are not talking, the law that we have submitted is nothing new. We already have the law, and that 2008 constitution has already been abolished by that others. We don't no longer have a law, and that it is important to that already abolished. So it is important to have a new national human rights commission law, which will be in line with it as well, and that so we don't have to wait, and that there are things that we can do, so we'll do as well. It is not fixed, and it is not that once you set it, it's gone for online. It is because of the political process, and because of the evolution, things can be adjusted. So it is important not to wait until the end and to start working on it as well. And that we are also seeing that the NUG Ministry of Human Rights is working on that. Yeah, there are also things we want the NUG Ministry of Human Rights to do more as well, especially for the PDFs and the LDFs, and then as well as and that there are people that they are making a lot of sacrifice. It is important to recognize the sacrifices, and it's also important to that to understand them as well. But there are also a lot of challenges when it comes to political movement, and that it is also important to ensure that those things could happen, and that it is important that PDF and that whatever it is, I think it is important for the NUG, the Human Rights Minister will also need to make sure that promotion of human rights as well as on the awareness raising, and that it is important for the protection of the civilians, and that and also that that it is also important to ensure that there is a clear code of conduct, and it is also important to provide that as well, and that if they are not following the rules and regulations, I think it is also important to make the system more effective for justice, and that for the accountability as well. What is happening in the armed conflict areas is that sometimes we will say that, oh, these are cases that are happening in the conflict area is by the Ministry of Defense. For example, like sexual violence against women is to be addressed by the Ministry of Defense. No, that when you have an issue with the civilian community, and that and also that for the women we are facing violence against civilian or violence against women, these are the cases that if it is the Ministry of if the Ministry of that it is important to have it is important to ensure there is justice, there is justice, and that it should not be under the it should not and that there has been a stop because it has been under Ministry of Defense, and that it should not be under the civilian management as well, that for to ensure to ensure there is justice. I think there are things we haven't been able to do as well, and that for that we want us to overcome this challenge. Women has to be able to work harder against it as well. Let me respond to the question. Sorry about that, I've been taking it too long. I think a question I have received is that that the PDF the PDF are working hard. PDF are working hard for that for working hard dying for the human rights. And that, but they are not the local conversation when they die here. A point I would like to make is when we say human right defender, and that it is important that according to the UDHR, that it is important that people have the right to defend their life for survival. But at the same time, that when we say human right defender, and that if you want to describe yourself as a human right defender, that if you bear weapons, then the rule has already been defined as well, and that that it can no longer be considered as well, sir. They are that it's not about the, I'm not talking about the recognition for the sacrifice that they made by the international community. And I think we all recognize the contribution and the sacrifice made by the human by the PDF, by when they are armed resistant, when they are fighting with their weapons and the others are fighting against their weapons. I think it is important when we say human dignity. Each and every one of us has human dignity and human rights. So your adversary, your enemy, they also have the human rights, and that they are also a human being. They need to be treated as a human being as well. That one thing we can say is that those who are like that how can the people will say that, but how can this military were violating human rights? And then they say, how can you talk about human dignity for them? People will be very angry with me if I were to say that human rights is important, but it is important that and that that when we say human rights or the human right education, it is important to make it for everyone. That human that resistance in a revolution is necessary. So we don't have to say anything about that. But what is necessary is that under the topic of the human right defender, if you are doing armed resistance, then they also have a right to protection, right to treatment, right to rights. I mean, because they can, but however, they have the right to medical care or the treatment as well, and that but they will not end the topic of human right defender. I'm sure all of you had heard that that a ministry that the U.S. government has already signed, and that when we talk about the Spring Revolution in Myanmar, that you have you have the PDF, you have so there is there will be a protection to help with this to provide assistance to the PDF, LTF, as well as on the human rights organization Myanmar. So it is important that NUG, especially the EROs, NUG and NUCC, and that those who are working, and that it is important right now the U.S. government has ended the law. It is important for the NUG and UCC where to talk to the U.S. government to say what kind of assistance, what can the PDF, what can the NDF do, is also be do that as well, and that that at the same time, I think it is also important for the, that to talk with the government to make sure there was what can they do to support as well, so that like for example, like US, we don't like the US going to other countries to fight, but US government, they take care of their, so they take care of army whenever they are injured, or that they will be care for them as well, so that at the end of the topic, this it's not just under the human rights defender topic, that as a soldier, it is important to recognize for the sacrifice by them. It is important for the government and the political forces will need to work together. And it is important also, this is also something we can do to bring assistance as well. Thank you for your answer. So the Sema Kilma already had shared her experience that during it is important to the Human Rights Commission or the Human Right to recording human rights violation. It is important not to wait for it. Let's Dr. Umar has said before, it is important to ensure there are human rights mechanisms to protect and promote human rights when there is a highest level of violation. It is important to have a mechanism and a structure. It is important to have that. It is something we need to work on. So just want to say that we cannot wait, that it is important to have a structure as a system to ensure human rights violation as well. Thank you for that. Thank you for answering that question. We also have other speakers, so we'll also like to give although we may not be able to answer each and every one of the question, because we also want to give chance to the other speakers as well, but we may not be, although we may not be able to answer all your questions, but our talk show is, we have it every day. We have it every Sunday, and we also usually let you have 15 minutes after that as well. In the today discussion, we have that we also will be that we also have received the advice and the recognition. So we'd like to close our today's session by inviting each and every one of speakers on the any last comments they want to make about the speakers, about the based in a human right based new nation. So there have been a lot of comments that we have received as well, and that what should we do? What should we prepare for? And that because we want to build the new nation, and that only then we'll be able to bring we'll be able to bring benefits to all the people. So what are the recommendation advice for that, and how do we do that? So we'd like to ask each and every speakers. We'll have every speaker will have 3 minutes. We'd like to start with the Siama Wawinu. Thank you for the question. And that so to
စမောင်ကလည်းပြောသွားတယ်ပေါ့နော်ကျမတို့ကအရင်တုန်းကဖြစ်ခဲ့တဲ့အခြေအနေ
In order to build the future based on the human rights, as Yama Kiruma mentioned, that we must acknowledge the past. And based on the acknowledgements of the past, we are to build a future which is completely different from the past. So this is to say, no human rights violation, human rights are protected, and no crime against human rights. So this is a future that we all want. And this is a future that needs to be built. So in order to build that kind of future, what we need the acceptance of the past, which is the violating history of a human rights, and the
ပေါ်မှာ genocide ဖြစ်ခဲ့တယ်
violating
ဆိုတာတက
acceptance is very much needed. Rohingya genocide, it's
မလည်းမပြော
the
သေးပါဘူးအဲ
what the world believes.
ပြောနေတဲ့လူတွေလည်းရှိတယ်
Accept,
မပြော
but
တဲ့လူတွေလည်းရှိတယ်
NUG does not openly talk about it. And when it comes to the transitional justice, the when it comes to the establishment of the transitional justice,
တိမှတ်ပြုတဲ့ကျွန်တော်
the
တို့အလေး
acknowledgement, the honesty, and the mutual understanding, it's all very much needed so that past will not be repeated, and thus the future can be fixed,
နဲ့အနာဂတ်ပေါ့နော်
which is
ဒီမဲ့နဲ့အ
free
နာဂတ်ကို
from the wrong past. In shaping the future is to be based on the human rights, and in building this kind of future, in building this kind of country, there are many
စောနက
that we
ဆရာ
can
ကျွန်မ
do.
တွေ
There are many things that we can learn from other countries. As the other speakers mentioned, it is to build it is to establish the National Human Rights Commission,
ဟာတစ်
which
ခု
is
ဖြစ်ပါတယ်
independent
တစ်ချိန်တည်းမှာကျွန်တော်တို့မူဝါ
from the government of the time. And at the same time, there are policy inputs, and there are also actual implementation that could
စီချတာပေါ့
be
နော်
undertaken as well. We have this
တော်တင့်ကို
democracy
ကျွန်တော်တို့
charter
အားရစရာကော
in
င်းတဲ့
terms of the
chart
policy aspect, and this is the charter which seems very much satisfactory to an extent, and there are of course still room of improvements in this, so there are enhancements
လူအ
still
ခွင့်အရေး
possible
ချိုး
to be
ဖောက်တယ်
made
ဆို
based on the human rights perspective. So when it comes to the human rights violation in some countries, you have this protective classes, protective groups. The ultimate protections are given to the particular group of
အခြေခံ
people,
တိုင်းပြည်အမွေးဖွားရ
particular groups of linguistic, particular groups of religious. So, this kind of specific protective measures are explicitly written in the specific countries. So
ရေပုံရအဖြစ်ရေးထားတာတွေတွေ့ရပါတယ်ဒါပေမဲ့
this kind of measures are there. But then again, in the Federal Democratic Charter, there are some general principles and values regarding human rights are there. But then again, there are rooms for the
ဒီ Federal
amendment.
Democracy
When it comes to the Constitution, when it comes to the Federal Democratic Constitution in the future for the new country, in which
ကြောရိုးခံတဲ့
what we can say is that
အခြေခံဥပဒေတွေအနေနဲ့ရေးဆွဲဖို့လိုတယ်ပေါ့
it's
နော်
to be skeleton of the Constitution then, so that the human right mechanisms will be stronger. We have this revolution leaders. The revolution leaders
ခါကြရင်တော့ကျွန်တော်တို့
have
နည်းန
the
ည်း
willingness, but when it comes to the actual implementation and undertaken of them, there seems some hesitation to actually execute or implement the human rights. I think
အန်ဒီရဖြစ်
their
သွားမလားဆိုတာထ
opinion
က်ငါ
might be
တို့
that, well, you know what, if we have the human rights implementation, it's full blown, then there might be some sort of risk that they might think that it should happen. I think
ရေးဆွဲ
we
တယ်ဆိုတဲ့
might
အခါကျ
feel
ရင်
that
ဒီကျ
if
မ
there
တို့
would be full implementations of human rights, there might be some rights that we have to give up. I think this is their worry. We don't have to worry about that. I just would like to encourage the leaders, the revolution leaders, that the human rights
အခုအချိန်ဟာဆိုလို့
in
ရှိရင်
its
ဒီလိုလူ
full
ခွင့်ရေး
has to be the skeleton of the future constitution. And in this revolution time,
မျှော်မှန်းတဲ့အခါမှာဘယ်လိုမျှော်မှန်းသလဲ
we
ဆိုတာကို
must
လက်တွေ့အကောင်အထည်ပြနိုင်ဖို့အတွက်
practice
ကို
and
ကောင်းတဲ့
implement
အခါကာလ
practically
ကို
the
ကျွန်မ
human
တို့
rights
အခုဆို
in
လို့ရှိရ
order
င်ဒီလူခွင့်ရေးဝန်ကြီးဌာန
prime
ကနေပြီးတော့စတင်လှုပ်ဆောင်လာတဲ့
the future country that we want to live.
ပါတယ်အများပြည်သူ
The
အများပြည်သူ
initiatives
တွေ
of the human rights ministry
ထုတ်ပြန်နိုင်ဖို့
is
ကြိုးစားတာအများ
very
ကြီး
much
ကောင်းပါတယ်
commendable indeed.
အဲဒီ
They
လိုမျိုး
try
လုပ်ရက်တွေကို
to
လူ့
have
ခွင့်ရေးကိုအခြေခံတဲ့
the
တွေလှုပ်ဆောင်ချက်တွေကိုလူ့ခွင့်
they
ရေး
try to have
ခုတည်းက
public
မဟုတ်ဘဲနဲ့ကျန်
awareness.
တဲ့ဝန်ကြီး
They inform the public about their activities. So this kind of good practices is something that the other ministry has to follow, in my opinion. Well, for example, they needs to have some sort of sample practice or model of excellency that needs to be happened among the various agencies of the
ပြောဖို့လို
national
တယ်လက်
unity
မှတ်ထိုးဖို့
government.
လူ့ခွင့်ရေး
And it is very important that the national unity government communicate and inform to the public that there are international standards that they are trying to rectify, and so that the actual implementation will be
လိုတယ်
happen
မှန်ပါတယ်ဒီ
in
တော်လှန်ရေး
the
ကာလမှာ
enactment of the future laws. Yes, the actual implementation in the revolution can be limited, but then again, we also have to try out at least the model way or
ကျွန်တော်တို့က
testing
ပြည်
way
တွင်း
or the
ပြည်သူတွေစီ
pilot phase that they can show to the public that the actual implementation can happen. And as a result, the revolution
ဒါ policy
the
ပိုင်း
pro-revolution groups
နောက်ဆုံးတစ်
will
ချက်အနေ
gain
နဲ့
more
ပြောချင်တာက
trust
ကျွန်တော်တို့
on the national unity government. So this is some of the policy level improvement that the NUG government can take. And I also would like to say that in the political leader, in political groups, they
အ
show
များကြီးအားရတယ်အခုတ
commitment to build the future based on the human right. I am very much encouraged as well. In the federal charter, in other policies, there are many words that seems very much encouraged. But nevertheless,
တွေ့မှာ
these
အ
are
ကောင့်ထဲ
just
ပေါ်ဖို့အ
words.
အတွက်
All these encouraging words required to be actually implemented on the ground, so that it would be the routine practice of everyone to live along with and to implement
ဟိုလှု
together
ပ်ဆောင်
with
ချက်တွေမှာ
the human rights. There are practices, there are routines, ways that the human rights can be implemented, particularly the improvement of the rules of law, the improvement of the
ငွေရန်
agencies'
တရားထဲမှာဘယ်လို
activities, and the routine justice mechanisms are everywhere that the human rights can be integrated on the daily basis. When it comes to the actual accountability and responsibilities,
တာဝန်ယူ
the violators, the perpetrators are to be
တာ
held
ဝန်ခံမှုတာဝန်ယူမှုရှိ
accountable
ဖို့
and
ဟို
responsible. We always ask everyone to try one best to have the military held accountable and responsible. But then again, on the other hand,
ကျွန်တော်ဥပဒေထဲ
there
ဥပ
are
ဒေတွေထဲမှာ
other forces and there are other groups and organizations to be treated the same when there is violation. And then again, I think that if there would be the independent national human rights commission
တဲ့ပုံမှု
available,
တွေကိုလည်းရှိဖို့
then
လိုတယ်
all of
ပေါ့နော်
these will be actually implemented. So in short, what I would like to say is that we need to have written policy, and it is critically important to have the actual implementation happening
ဖောက်
on the grounds as well. When it comes to the Rohingya issue,
ဟော
Rohingya
တော်လှန်ရေးအင်အားစုတွေက
right
ဟာလက်ခံ
violations, it's been accepted to an to an extent by our general public, which is very much encouraging indeed. But then again, when it comes to the violation of the Rohingya, the killing of them,
ကျမ
the
တို့ဟို
rejection of them to be the citizens of the country and to be the internally displaced people or to be expelled from the country. But then again, the compensation
ရဲ့ကိစ္စရပ်တွေကိုဆွေးနွေးတဲ့
for
အခါမှာ
them to be the acceptance of the citizenship. I think this is not just enough. We are not talking about the citizenship of the Rohingya. This alone is not the solution, right? Because the thing is that there are grievances.
နဲ့ဆိုမှတာလူတွေ
The
လူရိုဟင်
grievances
ဂျာတွေရဲ့
needs to be observed in comprehensive manner, and then their grievances are to be addressed in comprehensive manner. It's just not the matter of getting the citizenship.
မှုတွေဖြစ်တယ်ပေါ့
They
နော်
lost
ဆိုတော့
the identity as well. So having them lost their identity, it's also the violations of the human rights as well. Rohingya situation must not be seen as a curtain to differentiate you and I. But then
ဒီကမှာ
again,
ရှိရ
Rohingya issue should be looked at much more comprehensively. And the Rohingya rights violation is the huge violations of the leader of the country.
ပါတယ်ဆိုတော့
So
ကျွန်တော်တို့
this is
က
the huge question for the leader of the country, how this is to be addressed. As long as the human rights guarantee of the Rohingyas are not restored,
လူခွင့်ရေးပြော
this
တဲ့အခါမှာ
country
ရိုဟင်ဂျာတွေဟာ
can never be said that human rights values are there. So we really need to understand the grievances of the Rohingya and address them properly. And another thing that I would like to talk about is the
အနေနဲ့ကျမတို့ရဲ့ဟို
message for the revolution groups. The Rohingya issue should be treated as the priority. It's not just the human rights
နောက်မှလို့
violation. Yes, it is important to have
မျိုးတွေတစ်ခါ
the
ခါတွေ့ရပါတ
revolution
ယ်
win.
ဒါတွေက
It is important to have the federal charter. It is important to have the federal federal democratic implementation of the country. So let's not talk about the rest. The rest is not prioritized. I think it is not the proper way if
ဒီနိုင်ငံ
the
တကာမှာ
Rohingya
ပါ
issues, if the right violation issues are not prioritized even in the revolution, it would hamper the success of the revolution. And
ရဲ့လူတိုင်းကိုက
once we minimize the atrocity
လို့
and
စိတ်ဆန္ဒ
violence
မရှိဘူးဆိုတဲ့ဟာကိုပြ
of
တ
the
တ်
military, then it would not be the winning of the revolution. So I would like to remind everyone that all the violations of the rights should be treated as a priority in the revolution. Thank you very much.
အကြံပြုချက်တွေကိုမဝင်တို့ဒါရတဲ့အချိန်တွင်းမှာပြောပြ
Thank
ပေးသွား
you very much for sharing what we need to be mindful about. And in terms of the Rohingya citizenship, we are
ဒီနိုင်ငံသားဖြစ်သွားယုံနဲ့သူလူ
to
ခွင့်ရေး
consider their human rights, the situations of the Rohingya will not be improved only if they've got the citizenship. We are talking more than that, right? So this is some sort of um,
ချိန်တိုင်းတာတစ်ခု
learning
ရှိ
that
တယ်
I
ပေါ့နော်
learned
ပြင်
from
လူခွ
you.
င့်ရေးဖွဲ့
Now I would like to invite Sia Saw Nanda, who belong to the Khin human rights group, and that is the group working on the human rights for several decades. So that group has various human rights activities. So I just would like to invite you to share your opinion with the public. I have 3 points that I would like to make. In order to build the country based on the human rights, we have to get rid of the military dictatorship. That is number one. And I have the impression that your internet connection is unstable.
ကြားပါပြီဟုတ်ပြောပါဦး
Now I hope that you can hear my voice again. Yes, you may try it again. What I was saying is that I have 3 points to be mentioned. In order to build the country based on the human rights, we have to get rid of the military dictatorship. Second, all the violations of the human rights is to be held accountable and responsible. Impunity is to be abolished, and all the victim needs to enjoy the justice. All the leaders and everyone living in the country needs to have the sense of humanity to peacefully live along with each other. Khun Naung, anything that you would like to share or anything that you would like to commit to for the future? Thank you.
Here, rather than a commitment, I would like to talk about the suggestion. What we are discussing is talking about a human right-based new nation building, the goal that we want, which is also the goal of the Spring Revolution. We want to have a peaceful and stable society. We want a human right-based new nation. That's what we all want. That is our ultimate goal of our revolution. So here, my recommendations that it is important. The first recommendations to the revolutionary forces, those who are, participating in the Spring Revolution and those who are in there from the Spring Revolution to the armed resistance. This revolution is gaining momentum. That whenever the fighting or the armed conflict expand, then there are also the risk of, that losing humanity or there more cases of human rights violations happening. It is natural. It happens all over the world. It is important for us to be more careful, more prudent about this. We are all in this revolution to ensure a better system for the future of the people of Myanmar. We want to build a federal union that will ensure all the equal rights for all the citizens of Myanmar. While we are moving on this journey, it is important to remind ourselves that we are fighting against the dictators, that our dignity and our professionalism and the adherence to the human violations are different from that of others. They may violate human beings, so the human rights, and they may forget about humanity, but we can't. It is important that our revolutionary forces in the PDF, we may be bearing weapons and doing a armed resistance, but our people are the future leaders of our country. The youth who are now in the bearing weapons in the revolution are the future leaders. It is important our future leaders upheld their justice and the human right as well. When you are conducting them, that war on the ground, and that situation can be very complicated, it can be very complex. It doesn't matter anytime. It is important that all of us, while we are working for the armed resistance, it is important we need to remind ourselves of the importance of human rights. We all need to stay and straight and do not deviate from that from the code of conduct as well as on the human rights rules and regulation. It is important for us to adhere to the rules and regulation established by the NUG. My recommendation and that a request from the people of Myanmar will be supporting this revolution. people's strength has been the biggest strength in this revolution. It's been 2 years now that Myanmar is under the crisis. So people are tired, people are getting exhausted. It is natural, we understand that, but for us to be able to achieve our goal, to be able to overcome the challenge, it is important that we need to work together to be able to win the revolution. We need the people's support. People's support has been the biggest strength. So it is important for all of us to work together to be able to also to criticize it. It's also important to provide with support. It is also important to keep in mind of the truth and the journey that we are on, that we are all part of this revolution. We are all human beings. So it is possible that we may deviate from the right path. It is important for the people to remind us of our goal, remind us of what our commitments and the importance of the values and standards of human rights, so that other people, I think it is important to believe in the human rights and as well as on the justice and accountability, and that it is important to make sure all of us on the right path to move forward in our search for our ultimate goal by following the principles like human rights as well as justice and accountability. Another a message I would like to give other soldiers who are under the military junta. Myanmar have faced worse form of human rights violations and the violence, and these are the root causes of these human rights violations are also the root causes for the military leadership. They are the instigators, they are the perpetrators of it as well. In every country, being a soldier is a noble profession which has a professional dignity. But under the military junta, and you know that the brothers in arms, that our dignity of professionalism has been destroyed to the lowest level. It is important to get away from the control of these corrupted military generals. They have been oppressing us, they have been abusing it, they are exploiting us. It is important to be good soldiers. It is important to be stand by the truth, stand by what is right and by the people. If you join us, if you join the side of the people, then the military will be we can conquer the military in a short while. Thank you. As for the next speaker, I would like to invite Ohmar. Can you give us also less comments? So thank you. The other speakers also have made a very comprehensive points as well, and that the other speakers also have shared that it's been nearly 2 years. So after 2 years, it can be very difficult. People are exhausted. People are also facing a lot of challenges. But on the other hand, people have commitment and belief. So it is in a difficult and challenging situation. And for those who are working on the advocacy, and that we are also trying to raise it as that as well, and that it is important that for the commitment of the first Tribune of the revolutionary forces and the people of Myanmar is incredible. This perseverance is something we haven't seen it in any of the public movement in the 21st century. We haven't seen such a movements in other countries like CDM, that non-violent civil disobedience movement and the PDFs, and that that fact that they were able to govern their own territory. Now they have local administrations, and that going on, that since the very beginning of the Spring Revolution, like the slogan go, that will never let the military govern us, and that motto, that slogan, is now being implemented on the ground, and we see that this revolution had come so far. What we can commit ourselves to, what we can say is something what we already been doing. What those who are doing advocacy on the ground, that not only the Myanmar-based organization, we also have international organization. All of us, we will work together hand in hand with the people of Myanmar. The people of Myanmar, we will share that with the international community, how the people of Myanmar do is not letting the military govern them, and that we are always sharing that with the international community. We are also letting them see that clearly as well. And as one of the speakers have mentioned just before, it is important to know that while we are resisting the military junta, while we are trying to remove that military dictatorship, it is important to stop the system of military dictatorship. It is important to ensure there is self-determination, and that to be able to form a new union out of Myanmar. There are gaps, there are needs, there are challenges. That despite the challenges, gaps, and the needs, it is important to build the change that we want to be. And that's how I understood what Sia now you has just shared. We are building, you are being embodying the change that you want to be. That in this movement against the military hunter, it doesn't matter how that how strongly we hate them, or that it is important that and that in this it is important that it is important for us to focus on building the foundations for the nation that we want to see, that we want to have. It is important to see this foundation. It is also from our side, it's important to see how we can contribute to that, how we can coordinate, collaborate with that. It is important to display and share that sacrifices of the Spring Revolution, the progress of the Spring Revolution. It is important to what extent the Spring Revolution advanced without any support from any of the country. We are running this revolution successfully. It is also important to recognize the efforts and the sacrifice of the people who are working on the ground. We are very proud of these sacrifices, and that but at the same time, it is important for us to reach a certain level of change that we want to see in Myanmar. It is important that our political leaders, as I have given recommendation earlier, it is important that NUG, People's Government, and other political leaders need to have a more effective human rights protection mechanism, with the more effective and efficient human rights mechanism, with stronger policy, with effective and efficient mechanisms to promote human rights. If the NUG as a public government can engage more with civil society organization, and it is important for us as civil society organization to be able to step in and do what the government cannot do. I think if we can walk hand in hand, then we'll be able to advance further, and it will really bring us closer quickly to the goal that we want. We need our leaders to open the doors and give us entry points. It is also important for our political leaders also to cooperate and then collaborate in this endeavors as well. Because revolution is not something we cannot achieve overnight, not in 24 hours, not in 7 days, 1 week. It's nearly 2 years now. It is important that we want to be that we'll be able to achieve the goal. It is important that we civil society organizations we stand ready to support you, we stand ready to work with you, and that's a message we want to give to the other revolution organization on the ground, as well as to the people of Myanmar. We are all working together for the common goal. In the future also we'll do more collaboration and coordination, and that we also will be looking into how we can make our work more effective as well. It is also important that we also want to try with the people to be able to work together as well. So this is something I would like to share. Thank you. So thank you, Siama Kilma, for sharing. What you're saying is that belief, and that the cause of that you believe in cannot be executed, just like the expression go. Your beliefs and your strong commitment cannot be imprisoned, cannot be executed, because with the commitment, with the release, we'll keep on merging till that we reach the goal. So thank you for sharing commitments, as well as, or thank you also for encouragement for the people as well. Now that we have listened to the words and the commitments of our civil society organization as the leaders, which Jolwe also have raised in hand. Which Jolwe is saying that how do we is there something we need to do for the human rights in the revolution, so that can the CRPH or the NUG tell us what to do? That we'd like to give the question to CRPH, Sithu, and then also that and that this will be our last question before we end today's session. Sithu, please answer this question. Is there what we have to do for it as well, so that I would like to go, it sort of remind me about the slogan from the last year. So the last year on the ground, and that that on the one thing we have a huge generation C who demonstrated with this banner that let's try to get back the human rights that we have lost. We are now in this we are in the revolution, that we are the CRPH, we are more of a policy making actors. One thing I have noticed at that the different constitutions of Myanmar, 1947 constitution or 74, or the military, their very military constitution of 2008. Whenever it is that are there elements about that human right based nation building? If we look back on the previous constitutions about we talk about the rights of the rights of the citizens, or they were also mentioned like the fundamental rights, but that if we really do a constitutional interpretation, then although constitution may be the highest law, but we are seeing on the ground political will or the regulations to ensure is that bylaws or regulations are important to ensure compliance as well. That right now, if we can look back at the Federal Democracy Charter that we all have agreed on politically. Federal Democracy Charter had the federal principles, the principles which serve as a framework. It contains like ethnic minority rights. It's also about the prohibition against discrimination. This is important about enshrining the important rights as well. All these are the important point. This is a initial agreement which serve as a principles for us. This is something we will have agreed and defined accordingly for the constitution. So when we move forward with in the establishment of the federal constitution, these values will be upheld in the federal constitutions that we develop. And then again, that then there is the rule of the CRPH according to the Federal Democracy Charter. In the Chapter 2 of the Federal Democracy Charter, we also see that in this that it is important that CRPH that these paragraphs concern about the duties of the CRPH as well. In that during this that it is that so that we have the democrat that adoptees and look at that what are the procedures and the protocols of it as well. All these, but the implementation and from the lawmaking side is that these are the duties of CRPH and the parliament. So that during this revolution, it is important to amend all the necessary laws to ensure we do our part of the legislation. If the laws are not in line with the human rights, we are discussing, we are going through this law and reviewing and amending them. That's the first one I would like to make. And regarding 1982 Citizenship Act, I think on this page of the CRPH, maybe you have noticed we have issued a new release about it as well. The Ministry of Human Rights of the NUG has now submitted the analysis paper, like analysis briefing paper on the 1982 citizen aid law, and we will also be discussing this law at different contexts as well. And that while we do that, it is that when we discuss about the law, it is important to get legal legitimacy. To get legitimacy, it is rather than enacting the law right now during the interim period, it is important to do that it is important to do that when there is a strong legal framework, like the point that that Ohmar has said about when you that it is important that the importance of having a independent human rights commission that also goes into that area as well. What we can say is that right now that we all have the political will and the sincerity that we all want, that we have determination on how we want to see the future nation. That is driving our revolution forward, and this is how we are moving forward as well. In the near future, we are trying to eradicate the military dictatorship system out of Myanmar. Once we have going into the transitional period, then it is important to establish a transitional justice as well. And when we implement transitional justice, it is important for us to be able to be able to keep record of all the violations committed by the military. It is important that we have a law. It is important that we also work systematically to ensure there is there are human rights violations recorded. I hope that I have responded your question as well as on my my briefing points as well. Thank you very much, Kosituma. I think it has covered all the important points. As the next speaker, I would like to invite that Deputy Minister of Ministry of Human Rights of the Commandant. So can you give any closing remarks? So according to the question, during the revolution, the question is about what can we do practically about the human rights that and also to do what we can. To that question, I would like to say that right now, in this current situation in Myanmar, like I have said before, human rights violations are happening on a daily basis inside Myanmar. These human rights violations concern all the humanity. It is a violation against the humanity as a whole. These human rights violations impact not only on the dignity of individual person, but the violation of the human rights. The non-compliance means a lot. So during this revolution, it is important to record human rights violations, not just by us, Ministry of Human Rights. It's important for the civil society organization to take note of the human rights violations, and that it is also important to ensure when there are human rights violations and that I think it is also important that all of us that follow and that respect the human rights as well, and that during this time, if there are violations, to be able to keep note of it, not only by ministry, from others, it is important to have the participation of the people. Either you have been, you have been a victim of the human violations, or somebody it is important to complain. It's important to reach out to the human rights offenders to clean it off. You can reach out to us through our website, through our as well. I think it is also important because it is important to keep note of such record of human rights violations, because one day we hope that we'll be able to restore justice and human rights violation. And it is also very important that but your participation is important for all of us, and it's also important to share it so that we can hold the perpetrators accountable one day. Another point I would like to make is that that it is to be able to to provide human rights, or to be able to restore justice on our journey for the building of a new nation. It is important to help find justice, to provide justice for the victims and the survivor. It is also important to hold the perpetrators accountable. So this is part of our preparation to keep record of it, and that it is also important for each and every one of you to participate in our efforts, so that we can one day hold accountable. So what can we do about human rights now? Now, there are many things that we can do, keeping record of it, by engaging with this, by engaging with the organizations working on it. It will also contribute a lot by being able to note of it. It will contribute a lot to us. It is also important that we each and every one of us follow by comply with and promote human rights as well. It is important to be part of the process and that contribute to the process. Thank you. Thank you to Khun and the Deputy Minister for sharing with us about what that ministry is doing, and also thank you for sharing us about what we should do. Now we are at the end of our talk show. We have 6 speakers. All of them have shared about their working, how they are working different ways in from different institutions as well. In this revolution, we already listened to their perspective on that on the revolution as well as on the human rights. We also have heard about their statement. We also given us practical recommendations of what we can do, and that we also have listed recommendations they're given to the different governments as well. Now that we also there are also some of the participants who will be able to directly join us through the Zoom link, and that although some of us may be in different places across the world, and that the way that we will be able to gather together on a digital platform and to be able to share about how we want our future nation to be. That it is in a way we are stating openly, we are stating formally, we are also broadcasting it, live streaming it through over 20 Facebook pages. We are live streaming it, and that at the same day we also have English interpretation too, so that the international speakers can also listen to this talk show. This shows as we are exercising the right to speech. We are exercising our basic human rights of a right to speech, right to opinion. And that although the people you are listening to us, this is also part of our basic human rights. I think once you understand what your rights are entitled to as an individual human being, I think that if you understand better about the human right, become a human right defender, this is something you can start from you, that you be able to have a human right defender, they're defending, and then through this we can also that we are able to through our work, and that it is also important to see by working together at the national level, this will become the places where we can stop human rights violations happening. This is what I would like to, and here we all can contribute to, we all can march together to a human right based nation, a human rights based union that we can build. Like the way we claim that it is important, we'll never let the military hunter rule us. By respecting your human rights, the rights that you're entitled to and that of the others, we can all contribute to the efforts for the human rights. Thank you very much for participation. That and also that we like to say, I'd like to say each and every speaker, thank you very much. And we also would like to thank the media, the pages, and the organizers, the People School team, and the work the Human Rights Institution Working Group, the civil society working group on the Human Rights Institution, and to the interpreters. Thank you very much for your participation. And we'd like to end our talk show here. Thank you very much indeed for your participation.
Maung lên tay quên mà ja so da shibu the jare pekane sin nei da me Maung tu ye swear I rebel out Jesus Nó sâu nó lên ngã ta này à dòng nhé ba Yong chi đề Mình là thiên bộ quê đó ba Thì giá đề bè cả đi xin đi ra mê Mà thứ ye swear I rebel out Jesus Nó sâu nó lên ngã ta này à dòng nhé ba
အားလုံးနားလို့ရပါပြီเนาะအားဆုံးဟုတ်အားဆုံးအမ်းလို့ရပါပြီကျေးဇူးပါ